Hello, welcome to this conversation about coexistence, collaboration in the direction of establishing peace among us on Earth. I hope that it is very clear so far, it has been very clear so far, that the prenate is a sentient, feeling, relational, decision-making being. One whose consciousness and patterns are already forming. And the understanding of this has the power to change who we think we are relating with before a child gets born. And that shift has surprisingly large practical implications for peace at every scale. The person, the family, the nation, the globe, perhaps beyond. But how can a sentient prenate contribute to peace? As we parents and society live our lives and evolve, hopefully, we plant seeds. These seeds may be seeds of non-violence or seeds of collaboration, understanding, compassion, and peace. Early relational experience help form a basic regulatory and relational templates. How we think, how we express our thoughts, how we expect to be touched, soothed, confirmed, confronted, communicated, relate. All these that entities, living entities, do when they are together. Beyond that, there is something that makes humans humans. It's not just the language. It's not just the movement or touching or holding or grabbing. But there are some things that have been identified as traits of humanness. Music, art, kindness. So early experiences, even before the conception, help us create these relational templates. It is important for all of us to treat, behave, think of, feel, and act with prenates or see prenates as relational partners. How would you treat the person you love? How do you speak to this person? What are the thoughts that you make every minute, not just a little time when time permits during the day or the week? How do you behave? How do you look at? What do you think? All of these are first tried and practiced with our beloved partners and friends and other members of the family or the society. Getting ready for the time when a child, a new human, will make his or her appearance, and then it is absolutely natural just to include and embrace this new human into the big family, because you have been treated like that, you have been raised like that, you know that all of us are interconnected and not just us humans. Prenatal life becomes a context when we have developed such skills where empathy, co-regulation, and trust are modeled right from the start. Those early templates make it easier for children to develop self-regulation, emotional literacy, two core ingredients of nonviolent behavior and conflict moderation later on in life. Recognizing the prenate's sentience reorients the family to share the responsibility and respectful communication. We can be different. We are different in many creative ways. Despite the fact that we are all connected in our core. And we can express our uniqueness. Sometimes we may insist on our uniqueness or truth, subjective truth, or our theories, or whatever. But we can do that in a different way. Not battlefields and not diplomatic outward, far from the truth or authenticity ways, because the prenate knows exactly the moment the information is out, instantly. No space for hypocrisy, no space for pretending that it is what it is not, that you feel what you don't feel, and that you think what you do not think. When we as partners or adults learn to manage conflict in a peaceful way, honoring who we are, but also honoring who the other is, and finding that very sweet point where the two become one, then this will be mimicked or imitated or adopted or thought of as the natural thing from the part of the developing child. We can express and communicate whatever we wish to, and do it not in an escalating towards the war scale, but with an intention of doing the best for best intentions. In this way, our whole life becomes the preparation stage for the moment when one of us becomes a parent, and then pregnancy becomes a live laboratory for learning, listening, feeling, sharing, repairing after rupture, mutual care, deep, genuine interest, skills that directly reduce domestic, familial, or personal violence and increase supportive parenting. If societies treat prenates as relational beings, laws, institutions, and public culture will shift towards policies that support parents and families, reduce parental stress, and increase social cohesion. Perhaps we'll see better leave policies, safer communities, prenatal mental health support, recognition of the human rights to the stage before birth, to embrace the prenatal stage. Educational programs to show who we are and who a prenate is, and how we can establish a relationship that integrates this understanding, that embraces the human from even the initial thought of becoming parents. Such programs remain to be seen. And wherever there are some policies, these policies actually limit themselves to offering a financial contribution towards material costs. That is not enough. We needed to change cultural narratives. We need to move towards cultural narratives that value the unborn as participants in the relational web and encourage civil values or community values like mutual respect, interdependence, interconnectedness, long-term thinking, all supportive of peace building at scale. Prenatal conditions, maternal stress, paternal stress, family social stress, influence the biology, psychology, and cognition of the primal health of the prenate, nervous, endocrine, and immune system. To mention just that. When we show better early regulation ways, then we minimize impulsive aggression and we manage to handle conflicts or difference resolutions in a better way. Repeated parental experience of being spoken to, soothed, responded to, and included creates expectations about the other's responsiveness. And these expectations shape future social interactions. The world is a safe place to be. I wish to be part of the world. I wish to be born. All conclusions like this have a huge impact on the way we get born. Easy, challenging, not wanting to be born, and then after birth, a more creative, positive way of being part of the world and not lose ourselves in withdrawal, isolation, and depression. Ignorance is not on the menu. Unfortunately, there is a lot to be done in this direction. We are still in a cultural narrative that prenates just are just a mass of cells they don't understand. Let the time pass. And then when they are born, they are still weak, small, little. Something to be carried, looked after, but not cared, nourished, included, embedded, communicated, honored, respected. There is a huge need for new cultural narratives. And beyond the narratives, there is a huge need of putting These narratives in practice prenatal practices embed values, rituals, languages, art, history, stories of triumph and stories of challenge. Public stories that foreground relationality and produce or lead to generations who see social ties as central and not optional. Policy and community supports, among which, I repeat again, accessible prenatal care for the prenate available to all, father involvement programs, grandparents involvement programs, other generations involvement programs, planetary education in programs. All of these reduce the pressures that otherwise make conflict and harm more likely. A child is not a personal story. A child is a new human with a personal entelechy, but also a familial and generational, even planetary entelechy. In this way of thinking, all of us can contribute towards health or discard, dismiss that task for whatever reason and let the prenate do whatever they can, left alone in their own domains. Our language can reveal a lot. I hear parents saying, I have nobody to leave the child. Can you take or bring the child after birth, of course? What is the child? Even a born child? A suitcase? A box? What? During gestation, our language still uses it. Or just does not even realize or ignore. Our language ignores there is a participant, a developing, a human, because actually we are all developing humans, even after our birth. We still hear, talk to the belly. Some ask me, what do you mean? Talk to my belly? Or to the womb? And of course, there is nothing wrong talking to your belly or to your womb. It's a beautiful inner dialogue between you and you. But there is more there. There is a human being in symbiosis with us during our pregnancy. Can we just be more careful with the language we use? Another example, we make babies. Do you? Do we make babies? What will be the language we'll use when technology will do all the work? Cultivate babies? Following specific individual orders or national needs or planetary needs? Will we see the Industrial Revolution expand and embrace human entities the same way that the Industrial Revolution has done with mass production? We still speak about reproduction and reproduction rights. What do we mean? Do we imply that we produce something absolutely identical like the cups I have in my cupboard? Are humans identical copies of any other human? There is more and more that needs to be revisited in our language. Language is not just sounds that get together to make meaning or convey meaning. Language conveys ethics, conveys attitudes, philosophies, values, conveys civilization. It is high time we revised our language. Fathers have always been the breadwinners, sent out of families, homes, everyday routine, so that they do something with the mundane needs, material needs of the rest. We still speak about roles. A man's role, a woman's role. However, whatever has happened during the last few centuries has managed to release some of the tension that was involved in survival and in the maintenance or even well-being of everyday life. With all our problems that came from fossil fuel farming or breeding animals or industrial development, technological development, and the cost that our planet is asked to pay now. We have managed to release quality time from all of us so that we can reflect more, relate more, think better, design better, decide better. Over the last decades, there is so much talk about fluidity in sexual identities. Perhaps it is a good thing to speak, to think of this fluidity as concerns who we are now in terms of female and male roles. I have met wonderful fathers, and both embryology and prenatal sciences in general speak to us about the contribution of a male, of a father, not only in terms of the gamete and biology or epigenetics, but also as a human being honoring his own place among other creations. It is high time we start honoring both for different reasons. Mothers, not for the narcissistic, or perhaps because it supports our own political demographics or other agendas we have as nations, communities, or a globe. But because we honor what the female energy is and what the male energy is, down to the core, to the essential archetypal aspects of it. And see how this can, from the monad, lead to the dyad, and then to the triad, and the new possibility, the potentiality for a creativity. Time for us to include fathers and extended family members in general, other siblings included. It is also important to remember what Ludvigianus used to say for many decades now, that healing starts from the generation alive. What is the generation now living? Baby boomers are still here, despite the fact that their number is becoming smaller. But Baby boomers are still here, and Generation Y, and the millenniums, and Generation Z, and the Alpha generation, which started in 2012. Each generation had or has accomplished, hopefully successfully, their own entelechy. Baby boomers was not easy for them, as they had to deal with the collapse of what was going on because of the war. Starting in 1946, baby boomers had to build where the war had destroyed. If I were a baby boomer, I'd be thinking about my generational position. As a baby boomer, I may be a grandparent to Generation Alpha. I may be a parent to millennials or an elder to Generation Z. Hopefully, as a baby boomer, I may bear the wisdom, the life experience, and the institutional memory that can be crucial in shaping Alpha's resilience. As a boomer, I lived most of my youth without constant digital noise. Having that experience, I can show Alpha that joy, rest, presence are valuable in ourselves. I can share slower rhythms, gardening, walking, storytelling, art, music, as counterweights to overstimulation. Perhaps it is not surprising that over the last decades we hear more and more about storytelling. Is it because this comes from the baby boomers? And as a boomer, I can teach that success is not only measured in productivity, but also in long-term fulfillment and relationships. I can act as an anchor, reassuring Alpha with perspective. We have faced the crisis before, my child, and we have adapted. There is only success story. As a boomer, we can share life stories of resilience, how we have lived through wars, social upheavals, economic turbulence, yet continued to build meaning and provide emotional safety nets by offering our steady, unconditional love that the millennials, busy parents, and the Generation Z, younger mentors, may not always have time to offer. Boomers excel at face-to-face community life, neighborhood bonds, volunteering, extended family dinners, and they can keep them alive for Alpha. Boomers actively create the spaces for in-person belonging, family gatherings, community rituals, intergenerational storytelling circles. And they can encourage Alpha to see that relationships outlast algorithms, offering living examples of friendship, loyalty, community. Baby boomers can also empower millennials and siblings or mentors, Generation Z, by offering mentoring support to ease millennials' burnout. By respecting and validating Generation Z values so they can stay confident as role models in their generation and act as bridges between tradition and the change, honoring the past without clinging to it, so that the younger generations can feel free to innovate. Boomers can use their stage of life to plant seeds of legacy, not just the financial inheritance, but knowledge, stories, traditions, ethical guidance. Share cultural and historical memory so Alpha grows up with roots as well as wings, and advocate socially and politically for policies that secure Alpha's future: climate action, education, healthcare. If I am a baby boomer, I'd say my role is to be a steady tree in the garden where Alpha grows, offering shade, stories, and roots. Millennials and the Generation Z may be the gardeners, but I can make the soil rich. I am the eldest storytellers, one of the elders, storytellers and anchors in the life of Alpha, carrying the lived experience that no algorithm or digital platform can provide, offering perspective, presence, legacy. All this can help grow into resilient, empathetic, connected humans right from the start, before conception. Spending unhurried time with a prenate, now in Generation Alpha, reading, cooking, talking, walking, gardening, simple moments building lasting bonds. Speaking to the prenate and then born about my childhood, my triumphs, how I overcame challenges, disseminating courage, perspective, and passing on traditions, music, recipes, games, rituals, offering unconditional love and listening, welcoming an alpha prenate exactly as they are. Participating in circles, family gatherings, neighborhood activities, where alpha prenates or born can feel part of something wider, deeper, larger, and make voluntarism visible, showing to our prenates in alpha that contribution to community is a joyful, lifelong practice. Teaching crafts, speaking about the beauties of the earth, of the soil, of the plants, vegetables, trees. Keeping analog spaces like writing a letter. Keeping all of these analog spaces alive, showing a way of connecting beyond the screens. And they can also, we baby boomers, can also offer relief to the parents of Alpha, the millennials, helping with childcare, with the bits and pieces, meals included, of the day. Speaking to the parents of Alpha about the important things to look after and then how not to lose yourself in a burnout, insignificant effort. Not judging modern parenting choices, but respecting even if different from ours. And sharing wisdom gently, telling stories of parenting and mistakes made, not as prescriptions, but as gifts of perspective. And again, baby boomers can support the Generation Z, the ones who are mentors of Alpha, validating their voice, listening seriously to Generation Z's activism, identity exploration, digital fluency, and offering perspective, not control. Sharing how past movements created the change without dismissing new methods. And by sharing curiosity, allowing Generation Z teach us about the digital world, showing Alpha that learning never stops. We can be vocal about our needs and support policies for climate action, planetary action, high quality education, health care for all, prenatal human rights, children's rights, and use the generational influence to make the next step. And invest in sustainability, whether through time, money, activism, practivism, aligning our legacy with a healthier earth. Writing letters, recording oral histories, or creating keepsakes. These will one day ground the now prenates alphas when they try to find their own roots. Baby boomers can give alpha both stability, the roots, and freedom to grow, the wings. They can offer presence, not presents. Presence is what matters. Our time, our attention, our stories matter more than material gifts. We can become the witness and guides, the living witnesses of history and the gentle guides towards the future. We can bridge, but not block. Stand as a bridge between past and future without clinging to control. Our entelechy as baby boomers was to rebuild, expand, and consolidate post-war growth, infrastructure, create social programs, stabilize and expand society. The millennials, the parents of the prenates, had a different entelechy, slightly different. Their entelechy was to breed and globalize, integrate digital life, integrate diversity, global consciousness, connect the world, rethink legacy structures. Generation Z, the mentors of the prenates in Alpha and Alpha, is to reform and awaken through activism, authenticity, social responsibility. This is the generation that is realizing the potential to challenge inherited systems while embracing technology. And our prenates and those of the alpha already born and growing, their entelechy is to harmonize and innovate. Integrate artificial intelligence. Cultivate, expand, and implement ecological awareness. Global interconnectivity. Their potential could be to synthesize human, social, and planetary intelligence. Each generation's entelechy manifests through the collective challenges, the collective creativity, and the responsibilities each inherits and transforms. Our individual choices, our individual creativity and contribution helps realize or expand the generational potential. Individuals innovate, heal, or transform the society, feeding the generational entelechy. And then the generational culture, crises, and opportunities shape how individuals discover and express their personal entelechy. Understanding generational entelechy can help mentors, parents, and educators guide individuals towards their personal entelechy, and conversely, nurturing personal entelechy in individuals contributes to the flourishing of the entire generation. Personal and generational entelechy are interdependent. People cannot fully realize their potential without acknowledging and engaging with others. Each individual is a microcosm of the generational cycle: birth, growth, awakening, contribution, transmission. And of course, there are the fast movers, those visionary individuals, like the one who left the Plato's cave and then discovered something and came back to teach and awaken. And these visionary individuals, the fast movers, play a special role They see beyond the immediate confines of generational assumptions and accelerate realization of both personal and collective entelechy, guiding transitions by helping the generation recognize its latent potential and act more consciously. In a generation, most move with the average rhythm, but the visionary few, the fast movers, act as catalysts, nudging both the generation and individuals toward faster and more complete actualization. Fast-moving individuals facilitate smoother, more enlightened transitions, reducing stagnation or destructive repetition. The younger generations challenge inherited systems, bringing novel adaptation that redefine generational entelechy and overlap periods occur when older generations still influence younger ones via their wisdom, values, and structures transferred. Millennials inherit post-boomer structures, but must adapt to global crisis and tech acceleration. And Zen questions and reforms, but visionary leaders help integrate past lessons with urgent innovation, and alphas guided by this lineage may harmonize tech, ecology, and society, realizing the latent entelechy of multiple prior generations. Let's come back to our initial talk. It is high time we create, integrate, and support intergenerational entelechy groups so that we can benefit the most out of the work, the triumphs of its generation before our prenates. And of course, birth should stop being a battlefield. The birth environment, birth professionals included, it's time to stop the war for professional interests or professional assignments, role descriptions, issues that are related to finances and identities. There is a lot of work to be done so that the birth scene is a template of peace. A stage of collaboration, of honoring each one as who each one is, including the prenate. Birth education, or as we now call them, perinatal groups, big story. Such groups needed to go away from just speaking about risks of pregnancy and high risk pregnancies and fear, and how to defend the woman from the enemy, which is the prenate or the experience itself. Birth preparation for pregnant families should be redesigned and become a template of peace, of re-established trust. Our educational institutions from level 9 all the way down to the primary stage of education need to redesign their own curricula so that they can integrate the new values and peace education that we now know how important it is. And cross-cultural prenatal exchanges or community group programs mixing families from different backgrounds could help towards easing, smoothening differences and empowering cultural or transcultural proficiency. All this need to be integrated in public health campaigns and in school campaigns around peace building and peaceful living. And ask people who can do that, to design that and mentor that. It is now a time for a cultural flip. From the isolated caregiver to relational systems. When prenates are seen as active partners in their own being and becoming, pregnancy stops being a private medicalized episode and becomes a social moment of practice. We learn together how to be less reactive, how to repair, how to take others' needs into account. And these small relational habits practiced across families and embedded in policy scale into communities that are better at negotiating, cooperating, mutual caring, and that is the architecture of peace.